Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Have you or someone you love been a victim of a crime that's still unsolved? Crime Curious has teamed up with one of the top private investigation services in the Indiana and surrounding area. If you have listened to us long enough, you know that we do not seek out services or products that are meaningless to us or hold no real value. So you can trust us when we say that Corbett Investigations comes with decades of experience you won't find anyplace else. Corbett Investigations is run by a former homicide commander of one of the country's most successful homicide units, has put over 400 people in prison for homicide, handled over 1,100 death investigations, and solved 33 cold case murders. To be real with you, Mr. Corbett had a really difficult time telling us what we should highlight in this segment because he does not like to sound like he's bragging. Solving crimes has been his life's passion, and he has never done it for the accolades or recognition. He has a whole team behind his services that help him be so successful, as they specialize in things like bloodstain analysis, ballistics, crime scene reconstruction, and forensic pathology, just to name a few. When you contact Corbett Investigations, you talk directly with Tim Corbett. He is hands-on with every case and can travel anywhere that's needed to get the job done. Corbett Investigations prides itself on honesty, truth, feet to the ground, real investigation work, and the strength to stand up to whatever is in the way of solving the crime. Corbett Investigations specializes in complex homicide cases, sex offenses, and criminal investigations that are old and new. Tim and his team have a reputation for finding witnesses and information that others could not. Although we hope none of our listeners ever need private investigation services, if you do, we recommend contacting Corbett Investigations and mention this segment on Crime Curious for a free consultation. Contact Tim Corbett today at 574-229-8115. You can also check them out on Facebook at Corbett Investigative Services, Inc. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show. Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
Hi, Megan.
Hi, Nellie.
Oh, here we are.
We've been
podcasting
recording
again.
a lot via Zoom because we're both incredibly busy. So it's so nice to be in the studio in person.
Yes.
It's different when I get to touch the gree-gree myself.
I know. Let's shake it. Shaking all of the gree-gree. We've got all kinds of stuff
So much
here.
stuff.
Hold on. We have a new apparatus to hold. Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't it a great noise?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. That was the raccoon penis bones for those that didn't know. And if you're new here.
Oh, and we need to squeak the pigs.
Oh, yeah.
We're in.
I love it. We're in.
The juju's good with this one.
All right. Juju's feeling good. And we need to thank listener Justin for this case suggestion.
Thank you, Justin. Hopefully, maybe I think. I never know what I'm getting into, so I don't really like to thank the suggester until we get through this.
So this one is a very mysterious disappearance case.
So Justin's going to leave me hanging.
Yeah,
I'm not getting brought to completion.
There could possibly be,
am I going to have some thoughts?
You're going to have thoughts. You might complete yourself. It's going to be one of those situations.
Oh, wow.
And we've all been there. So,
many times.
So, it's very interesting. There's a lot of perplexing things. I think this is a classic case of if the same exact thing had happened this day and age, it's solvable. But given the time frames, this is a 1950s case, not solvable, but very interesting ending that kind of leaves you thinking, lots to contemplate.
You have me drawn in.
All right, let me tell you about the mysterious disappearance of Evelyn Hartley. Beautiful name. Why are you looking at me like that? Does it sound familiar or something?
Yes.
It does?
It's okay.
Did you do it?
No.
Have we done it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, the episode?
Yeah.
No.
Because we are 4 years into this almost, my friend, and the day is going to come where I research the same case all over again.
It's going to happen. I have been doing some diving into some things, and maybe I ran across it, or the name just sounds familiar, or I know a lot of Evelyns, and I had a teacher whose last name was Hartley, and maybe they're just all sounding
blending
familiar
together. Okay, wonderful.
I'm ready for this, though.
I am waiting for like the Yelp review or the email to come through.
You totally did that in episode 18.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I listened to that on episode 6 and here again on episode 352.
But do you know how much we've changed since then?
Yeah.
I have a whole complete new name.
That's so true. You are a blonde instead of a brunette.
It's true. It's true.
You have a different name.
Career.
I mean, right.
Everything.
Whole different, everything. I know. So I am worried about that sometimes when I'm researching stuff, but hey, and if not, I researched it again and now I'm doing it with you and there's bound to be differences.
Oh, so, usually.
Here we go. Miss Evelyn was born on November 21st, 1938, which happens to be my mommy's birthday.
Oh.
Just not 1938, by the way. She would not like to be aged like that. Shortly before the outbreak of World War II, Evelyn grew up in Crosse, Wisconsin, with her siblings, brother Thomas and sister Carolyn, and her parents, Dr. Richard Hartley, who was a state college professor, a La Crosse State College professor, as a matter of fact, and his wife, Ethel. In October 1953, so at this point in time, Evelyn is 15. It's October, so she is just about to turn 16 the following month. One of her father's co-workers, who was also a professor at the college, his name was Viggo Rasmussen. He's Danish.
Rasmussen?
It's not quite Rasmussen, just Rasmussen.
Rasmussen.
Yep.
I love that.
He was a Danish professor. And
now I'm hungry and I want a Danish.
I know. I'm a sucker for the sweets.
Not usually, but I am right now.
So Mr. Viggo Rasmussen, he hired Evelyn as a babysitter. He had a 20-month-old daughter. They needed a babysitter. Now, the Rasmussens actually had a regular babysitter, but that person had canceled on them a few days before they needed someone. So they asked Richard, would your 15-year-old daughter, Evelyn, be willing to babysit?
Yeah.
And of course.
That's how we got referrals back in the day to babysit.
Yes.
Many times I babysat for people I'd never met because one of the doctors that I would babysit for would tell another doctor or college professor. Next thing I know, my sister and I, or me, myself and I, would be babysitting for strange children in beautiful homes.
Yes. And this sounds very similar, but it also sounds to me like Evelyn's dad is maybe a little bit atypical for 1953 because he was very diligent about, he wouldn't let Evelyn just take any babysitting job that she could get. And as we will see, he is kind of really on top of it when she doesn't come home when she's supposed to.
So he's an overprotective dad.
He is, and I like it.
Me too.
He did allow her to accept the babysitting job. And on October 24th, 1953, Evelyn, who took her studies, she was a high school student. I believe she went to Central High School in the area. She took her school books with her to study after putting the 20-month-old baby to bed.
Great. Multitasking. Yep. Responsible young lady.
Yes. So she goes to 2415 Hochschler Drive, which was a new subdivision that didn't have very many residents at. And this would be the first time that she went there. She took her school books. And later that evening, her father grew concerned after Evelyn failed to check in as planned at 8:30. Now, the Rasmussens were not due to be home at that particular time, but she was due to check in to just touch base with how things are going with the baby and all of that.
Great.
So he called the Rasmussen home several times and did not get an answer. He wasn't expecting Mr. or Dr. Rasmussen and his wife to answer or anything, but he certainly expected his daughter Evelyn to. This gave him enough cause for concern that he went over to the Rasmussen house just to check on things. And upon arriving, Dr. Richard Hartley, Evelyn's dad, noticed that the front doors were locked. He actually ended up forcing his way in because he could see that there were lights on. He could see that the radio was, or he could hear that the radio was playing. But Evelyn's not responding to doorbells, knocks, anything like that.
I hate all of it because as a parent of daughters who used to babysit often, and me being in that situation myself, I'm sure you were a babysitter at some point too, the gut feeling, you know right away something's wrong.
Yeah. First of all,
where in the hell are you?
Where's the baby?
Yeah.
He can't see Evelyn. He can't see the baby, but he can hear music and all the lights are on and the doors are locked. So he does force his way in.
Yeah, good for you, Dad.
And he's looking for Evelyn. He's looking for Janice. That is the 20-month-old baby. He finds Janice safe and sound asleep in her crib.
Okay.
But still no sign of Evelyn. And what's peculiar about this scene is that every door in the house was locked.
From the inside.
Yes.
I hate it.
I'm meaning bedroom doors. Every door. If there is a door, it was locked. He also looks around and realizes the house had been ransacked. There were items scattered all over the house. The living room furniture had been upended. And you couple that with the fact that every door is locked, he knows that something major has happened, right?
Well, I suppose somebody could have locked it from the outside if they had a key.
But even the bedroom doors, like even Janice's bedroom
interior doors are locked.
Interior doors. I'm sorry, was I not making that clear? I don't think I was.
You said all the doors, but my mind went right to all of the exterior doors to the home.
I'm so sorry. I should have specified interior doors.
Holy shit.
If there is a door in that house,
it was locked and then shut.
Locked. Yeah. Plus, he then looks around and realizes the furniture's upended. This place has been ransacked. Where's my daughter?
I need to call the police and break down every one of these doors.
Mm-hmm. He also finds Evelyn's school books scattered across the house. He found one of her shoes downstairs and one shoe upstairs. On the landing.
I hate that because we know that indicates running or an attempt at escape.
On the landing to the stairs were Evelyn's broken glasses, but there's still no sign of Evelyn. So a neighbor actually noticed Dr. Hartley come to the Rasmussen home, and he was watching him. Remember, this is a new neighborhood. There's not many houses around, so I imagine that the neighbors are being little nosy asses, and that's okay in this situation. But he realized, like, okay, there's this dude that kind of essentially broke into the house, because that's exactly what he did. And he saw him, walking around the house because the lights are on. So he can see him doing that. So the neighbor goes over, and just acknowledges like, hey, I see you, you're outside. Because what happened was Dr. Hartley is walking around the outside. He's still looking for his daughter. So Dr. Hartley is like, hey, my daughter was here babysitting. Now she's not. This is what I found. So he helps. The neighbor also helps. And while he's looking around outside, the neighbor that is, Dr. Hartley went back inside and called 911.
Okay.
So he called the police department at 9:49 p.m. So she was supposed to check in at 8:30, and it's now 9:49, and he's calling 911. When the patrolman, Ray Litchie, arrived on scene, he discovered, too, that every room in the house had been locked except one in the basement. The one that was not locked, Megan, the interior door that wasn't locked, was located at the rear of the house in the basement. There, Officer Litchie and other officers found a missing screen. This is how someone had likely gained entry into the home. Yeah. And it was leaning against an outside wall, as well as a short stepladder belonging to the Rasmussen home.
Right.
All right.
They use their own tools or implements to gain entry.
And that was positioned beneath the open window. On some of the windows, they did find some pry marks. So this wasn't the basement window wasn't the only window that was attempted entry.
Okay. So they did find those very distinctive pry marks.
Yep. In other windows.
Other windowsills.
And also
presumably on the first level, or were there more basement
there
entries?
was a ladder too. So it is, I can't specify if it, I'm sorry. This is a one-story home. There is a
Ranch.
landing. It is a ranch style,
Okay.
but there is a landing like at the top of the basement stairs. Like I think they used the basement too.
Are you picturing the beginning of Scream right now? Have you seen
kinda,
that
yes,
movie?
Of course I have. Scream is one horror movie
That you can
I
watch?
watched.
Okay.
I loved me some Drew Barrymore.
Oh, I like me some Skeet Ulrich.
Well, Sarah was probably that too.
I think all of my like of Red Flags started with that movie.
That's funny.
Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard.
Right.
Damn you, hot bad boys.
I did like Matthew Lillard too.
Of course, he's hysterical.
I was pretty young. I was in middle school then, so like I was
love it.
just coming into my girl crush days.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they have these pry marks. They also see footprints, and there were footprints in specific areas of the house as well. Upon further investigation, investigators found blood stains both inside the house
This is what I'm waiting for.
and in the yard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So clearly malice. There wasn't like an attempt for her to like sneak out and meet a boyfriend or have them come over there. There was
Right.
clearly forced entry,
Yes.
an assault, an attempt to get away. I evidenced that by the shoes. They did find blood inside, and then of course outside in the yard as well.
Yes. And
No like drag marks, or does it look like she was legit running?
there were bloody handprints about 100 feet away in the garage. And also, this is real weird, also inside a nearby house.
She got in to try to. I feel like she broke into a house to try to get away from
Yeah.
whoever was hurting her, chasing her.
Her or
This is a
him.
horror movie.
I know. I told you.
And
there
the
was
baby,
gonna
the
be-
baby was fine.
The baby was fine.
Somebody
Baby
targeted
was asleep in the crib.
her, but they had to have known that this is a babysitter. They had to have known there was a baby in the house.
Yeah. Well, and remember, this wasn't the regular babysitter. They had a regular babysitter that was just called off like 3 days before the actual day for babysitting.
Makes her a suspect.
Well, I would think so.
At least to be questioned, person of interest,
Yep.
because she was the typical one. Had there been weird things before? Had she been receiving phone calls? Is she the
Right.
potential target?
Well, that's just it. Were they actually coming after her?
yeah.
Based on the evidence found at the scene, police worked on the assumption that some person or persons unknown were responsible for the abduction of Evelyn Hartley from the Rasmussen
You
home.
mean they came up with that all on their own?
Sure
That
did.
there was a person or a person
There's
unknown that did this?
That's right.
It's
She
really-
didn't just leave on her own.
It's really quite brilliant police work for the 1950s.
It really is. Dr. Richard Hartley made several appeals directly to the abductor in the public,
Totally.
urging him to make contact either by letter or otherwise without the need to reveal his identity. He just wanted the family to have information on the whereabouts of Evelyn or where her body might be found.
That
He
is
was
heartbreaking.
pleading with the public.
Because he knew.
Well, there's blood. There's
You're a
there's
parent, though,
handprints.
and you know, I saw an interview with a mom of a victim who recently said, I think there's maybe a percentage of those moms out there who are like, I just want my baby back. I know she's still alive. But the great majority of them are like, they know that the outcome is not going to be what they want. Even when they're asking for her safe return, they know that they're really probably just asking for a body. So the fact that he said it right off the bat.
Yes.
Okay.
He
I have so many questions. I want to know where the homeowner and his spouse were. How far away were they from the venue? Could he have snuck back and then snuck out?
Well, let me tell you, they end up interviewing 3,500 people.
That's a lot.
It's so many
Crosse,
people.
Wisconsin, it's not a big town.
It's not.
I mean, it's not small for Wisco, but it's not a big town.
No. And
It's not like Detroit.
They were able to establish alibis for people that would be more likely than not, on the list that should be the suspects. Oh, yeah. There were never any telephone calls or letters from the abductor, but on October 26, 1953, a suspect was arrested in connection with the disappearance. It was a 34-year-old man from La Crosse. He was apprehended as a suspect. And the police chief, George Long, conducted interviews and they established alibis. And shortly after, this man that had been arrested was cleared of any wrongdoing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Then there was another man that was arrested Sunday night in Sparta about 2 a.m., which was nearby, as a result of suspicious activity. This man was seen by police parked near the La Crosse River Bridge and drove off at a high speed when he noticed that the police were there. So
really?
They traced his license plate, and the man was held in the county jail and questioned by detectives, but then later released. That stuff like that, this is why I said in the beginning, I feel like this is a case that in today's technology could probably be solved, but with the resources that they had in 1953, they had to just go by interviews and gut instinct. And that 2 a.m. guy that was on the bridge, that one pings for me a little bit.
You know what connects with that too, to keep in perspective where La Crosse is? So it's on the Mississippi River, and it is one of the far west points of Wisconsin where you're literally over the river from Minnesota. And then Iowa's just really, really close, jog down from there as well. So you have a disposal place is what I'm indicating, you know, and he was near there. He was around there. Was he caught doing something?
Why was he acting so suspicious? He saw a police car at 2 a.m. and then took off at a high speed. What were you doing?
Right. Dumping a body in the Mississippi River?
Right. Were you dumping a body? Were you returning to the scene of the crime to get your jollies off?
Maybe.
2 a.m. on a bridge is not where I get my jollies off.
Never. Almost never.
It's rarely happened in my life. Yeah. All right. So two other men, were then questioned by the nearby Sparta police sheriff, Ivan Wright, and assistant attorney Philip Arnson, one of whom was a known sex offender. Okay. These men, too, were cleared and released. But one witness in this interim time comes forward and said that they believe that they heard screaming on the night of Evelyn's abduction. Sorry, she was only abducted once. But at the time just thought that it was kids playing a prank and dismissed it and didn't call it in until news broke and she started hearing about it.
Did they hear that like near the residence where she was babysitting or someplace else?
Yes, near the residence.
Clearly when she was running away outside, right?
Yep. Police also used tracker dogs to pick up her scent, which ended at Coley Drive, which is 2 blocks away. Officers worked on the theory that Evelyn, of course, had been abducted from the Rasmussen family home and likely placed in a vehicle and then driven away. An eyewitness did say that they saw a suspicious vehicle driving repeatedly around the neighborhood the day that she went missing. So we're casing.
Yep.
Okay.
Waiting for them to leave, waiting for her to get the baby to bed.
Oh, it's so creepy.
It is a horror movie.
It is. 2 days after the abduction, a local resident, Ed Hoffner, came forward and said that he actually was almost hit by a driver driving a dark green two-tone 1942 Buick as it was speeding. He said that he saw one man driving the vehicle with another in the back seat with a young girl. He also told the police that he saw the same 2 men with the young girl a few minutes earlier before he was almost run over when he was pulling up outside his brother-in-law's house. So his brother-in-law's house was actually located around the corner from the Rasmussen home. And Mr. Hoffner went on to say that he saw the girl seated between both of the men and suspected that she might be drunk because the men who he did not recognize were holding her up by her arms.
I don't like it.
As they were like walking down the street is what he described it as, walking down the street. So were they walking her, forcing her to their car?
Clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Was she barefoot? Because her shoes were in the house.
I don't know. She had to have been. I don't know. We're going to get to more shoe stuff in a minute. The investigation was placed under the command of the La Crosse detective, Captain Leo Keem, and his team uncovered a key piece of evidence in late October 1953. So this happened October 24th, so this was just a few days later. There was a pair of blood-stained tennis shoes that were found on Highway 14, 2 miles north of Coon Valley.
Wait.
Yes.
But didn't we find her tennis shoes
Her
in
dad
the home?
did. Her dad found her shoes, one downstairs, one upstairs.
So these bloodstained tennis shoes clearly belong to the perpetrator.
Well, let's see. Because was she forced into other shoes? I don't know.
I doubt it. Nobody kidnaps somebody with ill intent and then puts new sneaks on them.
I don't know. I don't think so either.
If so, ridiculously fetishy.
And just weird, unless it's just chaotic and they're like, get in these shoes and this is what was by the door. I don't know. But why, after she had been running and she had lost her own shoes, one downstairs, one upstairs. The La Crosse police, why even, well, I guess if you're walking her down, if you didn't park at the residence because you don't want your car to be identified and you have to walk her down the street, you do want her to have shoes so that no one notices, why is that girl not wearing shoes?
But she's bleeding. She's bled in the yard.
Well, and clearly she had been able to get into somebody else's house.
And
they've been chasing her
down.
Yep. So the La Crosse, maybe she put on someone else's shoes from that other house to be able to run.
I was just thinking that. Did she get into the other house and then was putting the shoes on? Can you see it now? Like her handprints, she puts them up on the wall to slip somebody else's shoes on?
Right, so she can
Well,
run.
shit. I was just telling you that's an impossibility. They must be the perp shoes, and now I totally think otherwise.
I know. I think that they might just be... Have you ever seen the reel on Facebook where the cow steps into the shoes and walks away from someone's shoes?
It says the odds of a cow stealing your sneakers is low, but not impossible.
Right.
And
also, that cow was wearing a bell, so I do feel like it was planted and they just knew that. But still, regardless.
If you plant shoes for a cow to walk into and it's successful, I'm okay with this deception.
I am too. And
it's
I still
okay with
enjoyed
me.
the video.
Always.
So the La Crosse police appealed for the public in helping to locate the owner of the shoes. Like, if these are your shoes, they are bloodied on Highway 14, come and get them.
Nope. I will get new shoes, sir. Right. I'm not selling my stuff. I fell for this trick once before.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, it's not worth
Got me
it.
a year in the pokey.
I'll just get me some new shoes.
Yeah, not happening, guys.
So nothing comes forward from the shoes.
Shocking.
But they do make another discovery.
Okay.
There is a jacket that was found. It's a blood-stained jacket. And because a large-scale search was organized by over 1,000 members of the local community, and it included members, of course, of law enforcement, National Guard, La Crosse State College students, faculty members, of course, because her parents, and the home that she was abducted from was a professor. Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts got involved. So the search was undertaken by the U.S. Air Force and the Civil Air Patrol. So we had all hands on deck for this 15-year-old beautiful little Evelyn. In November 1953, officers came across several items of clothing, most of which were covered in blood at different locations. One of the pieces of clothing was a blue denim jacket. It was covered in blood spots, and it was found in the same area where the blood-stained tennis shoes were found back in October.
Okay. They just didn't canvas it completely.
Yep. The blue denim small-sized overall jacket, it's just like you're picturing, it's a jean jacket.
Yeah.
Was found just off the shoulder of Highway 14. After a rumor circulated that the jacket had been seen lying along the highway, the jacket was described as having a distinguishing characteristic with the bottom cut off and then re-hemmed by a hand machine, okay? Just 2 inches below the tops of the bottom pockets. So it was a cut-off jean jacket, a homemade cut-off jean jacket. Now the jacket
specifically tailored for somebody probably who wanted it to hit the right place. And back then, all the moms were seamstresses.
Mm-hmm. The jacket had been retrieved by a local farmer who had seen it, placed it inside his truck, and they found human blood on the jacket. So he turned it into the police, and the human blood was tested, and it is either type A or O.
So that's what we got for blood testing in the 1950s.
Yes.
Not even a definitive on the blood type, A or O. And it's like, you wish what they did for evidence collection then, instead of just closing a case, it would still be there so that we could get that jacket.
Well, there is later testing that is done, and it does match Evelyn Hartley, but it's not her jacket, by the way. It's her blood.
So
it's
Evelyn's
not her jacket.
Blood matches the jacket, but it's not hers, which indicates they had her for some time, to the point where she is wearing different shoes and a different jacket.
Yeah. They put out a reward for her, $6,600, which in 1953,
That's
is
a lot of money.
In May 1954, so we went, remember this happened October 53, so we're in May 1954, and police resorted to questioning students at La Crosse area high schools where she had attended. And they planned to conduct a mass lie detector test. Now, there are 1,750 kids that attend this school. They stopped the testing after 300 were questioned because it was considered very controversial. I think that what they were getting is we've tested 300 subjects and some of them, more than one or two, have some questionable responses here.
Because this isn't a very safe or consistent method at this point. And you're doing all of these things. You can't just do blanket polys. It's kind of like doing blanket search warrants.
Yeah,
I'm going to search warrant the whole fucking school. Every single one of y'all.
And you're going to end up probably finding something that you're going to think is suspicious, but you're reaching
for sure, because people are sus.
Yeah.
They keep weird things
There's
at
a lot
their
of weird
house.
shit.
Yeah.
Or at the school.
Also in the lockers.
The lockers. Lots of weird on it. There have been numerous times in my life that I have found weird shit in my purse, and I've thought to myself, God, it's a good thing I'm not under investigation for something, because that would be hard to explain.
Do you know what I drove with here today in my car?
What's that? Oh, yes, I do.
That's point in case. Okay.
That's true.
We'll get to that in a Patreon episode. Please tune
episode.
into Patreon for your bonus episode if you want to hear what was in my car.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. So also, by the way, they were targeting male students more than female for the questioning,
Well, because only males were capable of being murderers at that time.
In 1953.
Now listen, just through my classes, whether we like it and whether it's sexist or not, it's probably a 99% chance that this was a male or more than one male that did this.
Police searched almost every vehicle in La Crosse County as part of an inspection program, and recent graves were reopened to determine if Evelyn's remains were placed in a recent burial.
That's smart.
I was just going to say that. I was like, wow, I feel like we should do that more often.
Yeah, that's smart.
But no sign of Evelyn was found. By the end of the first year following her disappearance, investigators had questioned more than 3,500 people.
I'm impressed. Like you said, I mean, La Crosse isn't a small town. It's a town right on the Mississippi. It's a main thoroughfare from Iowa, Minnesota, which I love saying. Wisconsin.
For sure.
But again, it's not Detroit,
No.
3,500 people is a lot of people.
And obviously the crime rate isn't so excessive here that they don't have the time and resources to put towards interviewing 3,500 people.
Almost, in all of my research, La Crosse has almost never come up as like a huge crime mecca. St. Louis, Detroit, La Crosse, Wisconsin. It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't. It's weird.
No, it's weird.
How we don't see it on the list.
Dude, it's a safe, beautiful place to live.
You want to hear the Ed Gein theory?
Fuck yes, I do. Was Ed Gein traveling through there committing weird, creepy murders at this point?
Well, several years after Evelyn Hartley's disappearance, Wisconsin was shocked by the revelations that emerged from the Plainfield home of Ed Gein.
Oh, my God.
When Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Warden disappeared, the evidence pointed to Gein, who had been a customer in the store the same morning that Warden vanished. If you haven't heard coverage on Ed Gein, you should look it up. It's a pretty wild case. A search by sheriff's deputies of Gein's farm uncovered a gruesome discovery. Hung like a deer in a shed on Gein's property was the decapitated body of Bernice Warden. Inside the house, even more horrifying discoveries were made. Among the many items found were human bones, furniture made from human skin, bowls made from human skulls, and other macabre items from human remains.
We know Ed Gein.
Mm-hmm. He had been raiding graves at a local cemetery and snatched the remains of the recently deceased over the course of several years. Along with Miss Warden's murder, Gein confessed to the 1954 murder of tavern owner Mary Hogan. He was also suspected in several other disappearances of local women and girls. One of those that Gein was suspected of abducting and murdering was missing Evelyn Hartley.
Had he been to the La Crosse area? Because Plainview is just outside of Chicago. So it's 4 hours and 20 minutes away. I Google mapped it.
I think in their mind, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Ed was questioned over Evelyn's disappearance, but he denied any involvement. He passed 2 lie detector tests when questioned about Evelyn Hartley's disappearance.
Okay.
And the police found no trace of Hartley's remains during a search of Gein's property. Despite the police ruling him out as a suspect, many believe that Ed Gein is responsible for the young girl's death.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think that people want to think that because it gives you some type of closure that there was a vicious, terrible, gross serial killer out there 4 hours and 20 minutes away with absolutely no ties to your area or evidence that he'd been there.
Well, you know what is nice about it in a human mind is that there's just this one monster that we caught that's responsible for all of these disappearances. There's not more out there that might be lingering that haven't been caught. That's unsettling.
Because
right?
we know that using this terminology monster, which is a fair and accurate explanation or description, there are more serial killers that have not been caught than there are serial killers that have been.
Amen.
And we know this. Any of us true crime enthusiasts and podcasters, and more importantly, social workers, attorneys, judges, etc.
Yes.
We know this.
We do.
It is terrifying.
Mm-hmm. So I agree. I do not think that Ed Gein is responsible, and just his proximity of where he lived and where the horrors that were found like you said, 4 hours away does not mean he's responsible for every murder within a reasonable distance driving location, right?
And whether we like it or not, and whether they're reliable or not, he passed 2 polys.
He did. And for me, I mean, I know that they were, old polys, whatever, but I think that speaks. I also think that he probably would have just confessed to it at that point in time.
So I wasn't even going to go there, but we do know that a lot of serial killers, once caught, then they start claiming
They like to brag.
Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah. It's the only thing that they've got left, some way to get power and control.
Yeah, that was me too.
So in the 1970s, Evelyn's family moved away from Wisconsin and settled in Portland, Oregon. They were interviewed by the La Crosse Tribune in October 1978 concerning the still unsolved case of Evelyn, and it was the anniversary of it, right?
Sure.
So the Hartleys told the journalists that they had long since given up hope that they will ever discover the circumstances of Evelyn's fate. This is a direct quote. "We're not interested in reading any article about it," Dr. Richard Hartley said. The newspaper also interviewed Viggo Rasmussen, the man, from whose home Evelyn was abducted.
Yes.
He and his family had moved out of the house shortly after the abduction, and he said that the event is still a nightmare whenever they think of it. He said, we don't allow it to prey on our minds constantly, but we don't forget it no matter how long it was. He believed the same as others that it's unlikely the case will ever be solved. He said, "I'd be very surprised now. If it was going to be solved, it would have been right away." I understand that reasoning too. The police.
I know he was questioned. I know he had to have been questioned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But can you imagine, I mean, living with yourself too, if he didn't truly do anything wrong, his coworker, his other professor, his colleague who he looks at and works with every day, his daughter came to take care of your daughter and never came home.
Yeah. Well, and also just probably the relief that they feel as humans that their daughter was
their
safe.
20-month-old baby was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have that reaction. When there's any type of a tragedy that involves children, your immediate thought is, oh my God, my baby's okay. And then it kills you.
Yes.
What happened to your friends or your community's baby as well.
Absolutely. The policeman who headed the investigation, retired Detective Captain Leo Kim, said he too often thinks about the unsolved case. He said that this crime pulled a Houdini on us, he said, after making both himself and Evelyn Hartley disappear completely. Ray Litchie, another patrolman who arrived at the crime scene, later became the city's police chief. He said that he believes that there is little chance of the case being solved. He said, if something like that happened today, we could probably solve it. We've got techniques that we didn't have then. In 1953... I skipped a whole sentence. Sorry, guys. A lawyer that is for La Crosse County, John Bouchard, said, after so long since the crime, even bringing forth new evidence would be nearly impossible to prosecute someone now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, not stating the obvious, but cold cases are hard to prosecute.
They are.
Genius.
They are. But
it happens.
Bouchard was also saying that he gave his theory. This is his theory and his theory alone. He believes that a transient person was involved.
No way.
And probably her body was disposed of in the wilderness around La Crosse somewhere.
Or the Mississippi.
Right. And it will probably never be discovered. He said it was very tragic and the whole community was upset by it. Well, of course. But I don't love that the local prosecutor is blaming a transient person because he's essentially trying to say, like, anyone who belonged in this community couldn't possibly be capable.
Yeah, somebody passing through happened upon that neighborhood, cased it out, drove around for a while, tried to get in multiple windows, kidnapped somebody, not knowing what he was getting into. I don't love anything about that.
No, neither do I.
Because it's not rational.
Right. And they didn't have a large homeless population or anything like that. So
no,
like,
that
you
was
just
political.
don't want to admit
that was political.
Anyone in your community could be capable of horrors.
That was a political commentary to make sure that people knew that La Crosse is a safe place to be, to live. Agree.
In an interview conducted in February 1997, Captain Jin Sheeler, who was the head of the La Crosse Police Department at that time in 97, in the Investigative Services Division. So he started that job in January 1985. Okay. But in 1997, he said the case of Evelyn Hartley was always considered a homicide, despite the fact that no body was ever found, of course, because there was blood. There was plenty of blood found. He claims the department still receives tips from the public from time to time. This is a quote from him. Quote, "They never really pan out to anything of substance, but we will get calls on it from time to time. Someone will call and say they heard people talking about the case, or after thinking about it, thinking back all those years ago, they suddenly remember that somebody was acting strangely or may have had information, or the body is in this location or that location," end quote. So he's saying, it was so long ago, but it does still come up. Decades later, his words, because remember he said this in 1997, of like people will say, "Oh, I remember this, and I overheard somebody say this." Well, there is a type of a recorded confession, Megan.
What?
Yeah, listen to this. And this is what I meant by, this one just makes you think. The most recent development in Evan Hartley's case.
Evelyn.
What'd I say? Evelyn. Evan. I really hope I haven't done that the whole episode.
You only did it once more before this, and I immediately said Evelyn.
Evelyn? Cool. I don't know why. My brain is just skipping over everything else in the word.
It's mush tonight.
It is. So in 2004, this is the last known, most recent development for her case. A man named Mel Williams came forward to report a confession that he had in his possession that kind of solved the murder.
What?
Mel Williams said that he was in a bar called The Raven in 1969. So this crime happened in 1953, remember. So he's in a bar in 1969. I'm sure that there was all kinds of alcohol and drug just hazing through there.
That's right. A little drop of acid for you. A little doobie for me.
Yeah, a little LSD.
Yeah.
Let's get it on. When he decided, he's in this bar, and he decided that he was going to record the band that was playing at this bar. But he inadvertently recorded a conversation by two bar patrons.
It happens.
It does.
Because I put my phone up at a concert recently, and you get more of the conversations around you and more people that were singing the song loudly instead of listening to her.
Mm-hmm. So truly, the camera is pointed. It's 1969, so it's like a big camera on his shoulder, right?
Oh, yeah.
He has it pointed at the band, but it's picking up the audio of the two people at the bar.
I almost wonder if he must have been like with the band or doing something, because he would have had to have had a large camcorder.
Right.
A large, like movie style to like video something.
So he decides, this is 2004. He's like, I think I have an accidental recorded confession in the Evelyn Hartley case. Now, there was a man, one of the patrons, that was identified later as Clyde Peterson. He was known as Tywee to his friends. He was recorded talking about Evelyn's abduction and implicated himself and Jack Gauthier and another unnamed man in her murder. I don't know why my voice just stopped working there.
Murder, but we've never found her body.
Okay, right. The conversation mentioned that Evelyn had been abducted, as police claimed, and was murdered and buried in LaForge, Wisconsin.
How far is LaForge from
I don't know.
Crosse?
You'll have to.
I'm going to look.
Mm-hmm. So Mr. Williams, who was a musician, said on the tape, or said of the tape, excuse me. So, you know, you were asking, like, why would Mel Williams be recording this band?
Less than an hour.
It's less than an hour. There you go. He was a musician. And so, maybe he was recording for inspiration. Maybe he knew the band.
Yeah,
I don't know.
for sure.
But he said, listen, I forgot about the tape. I totally forgot about it until I saw a story in the paper. And he said also, these are just two people sitting at a bar. He wasn't sure that they were talking the truth. Anyone can make up a story, but there's got to be something to this, he thought.
I mean, I really, really wish that he would have reported that immediately.
Well, and this happened,
But if he was only half paying attention and mostly paying attention to the band, and then he didn't listen to this again until years later.
Right.
I don't know. I'm glad he came forward, but it does always bother me when people have information. But think about it. I mean, that's literally why things like Unsolved Mysteries give you the number at the end to call if you have any information. And how many people sit at home who have information that never call? Mm-hmm. Call, damn you, call.
Get your phone out and make the call. Well, the bar that he was recording this at was in LaForge. Okay. So he's like, I just got to think, and then he saw a story about it, and he's like, man, I got to thinking about that. He's like, why do people have this story? Why is this story, why was it resurfacing anyway? So the three men implicated on the tape, Clyde Peterson, Jack Gauthier, and the other unnamed third man, were all dead by the time that Mel Williams revealed the contents of the tape.
Okay.
Peterson had died of a heart attack in 1974, so not long. That tape was recorded in 69. He had a heart attack in 74. Gauthier, who, according to the tape, had allegedly stabbed Evelyn to death, committed suicide on December 25th.
Couldn't live with it.
This is what's really interesting. The Gauthier guy, he committed suicide on December 25th, which is Christmas. That's a high time for suicide.
It is.
1967.
Oh.
2 years before that tape was recorded, because Clyde Peterson was telling the other unnamed third man they were talking about
his suicide,
how they had murdered that girl. All three of them had murdered that girl with Jack. And that, Jack was the one who had stabbed her to death. And just as you predicted, he couldn't handle it and committed suicide.
But
that's what they were talking about.
They were so specific in that recording that they talked about stabbing her to death.
About how Jack had stabbed her to death. And they think because she stabbed that girl to death, that he couldn't live with himself. And that's why he committed suicide 2 years before, December 25th.
And then another one of them ends up committing suicide after that conversation.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
One had a heart attack.
Oh, okay.
And the other one just died.
Okay, for
only
some
one
reason
committed
I thought
suicide.
he had offed himself. So.
No.
Himself.
The third man is reportedly deceased.
Okay.
I couldn't find how.
My brain went to.
To me, this
suicide.
tape does seem to have some credit.
Sure.
Because they are speaking about why their friend had over beers. They're just at this bar over beers. Why he offed himself. And they are talking in details about how they abducted that girl just like the police thought.
And they don't know they're being recorded.
They don't. They are speaking freely over music, probably thinking no one else can even hear them. And Mel might not have even been able to hear them. He actually says he believes that they were capable of it, meaning Mr. Peterson and Jack Gauthier. He said that On the video, Clyde Peterson claimed to have taken Evelyn from La Crosse to a house in LaForge and from there to a location south of LaForge where he allegedly buried her. He said that he had no idea, Mr. Williams said he had no idea the type of conversation that he would record when he started the tape.
Okay.
He says this Peterson was quite a character, buying booze for a bunch of his alcoholic friends. I wanted him on tape for the memory and to get the music. The recording ends when Peterson actually tells Mel Williams to shut the tape off. He realizes he's being recorded.
Videoing? Okay. Mm-hmm.
After all these years, Mel Williams said that he can't remember what was said after the tape was stopped. I'm sure he was probably drinking too. It's loud. They're in a bar. He said, I don't know. It could have been something scary, but I don't remember it. To me, it was just something that was going to eventually end up solved, and I just didn't look into it. I didn't think about it until several years later when that story comes up in the newspaper, and he realizes, wait a second, I had that conversation with this dude who was mentioning her. And so that was the last lead in the developments of Evelyn Hartley. And to me, I feel like that is the strongest possibility that we have because of the seemingly random events and what they were talking about and talking about their friend's suicide and how he couldn't handle it because he stabbed that girl to death.
We call that an inherent reliability.
Oh, okay.
Like there's not... It's evidence, and it's just independently, inherently reliable because of the manner in which it was received or disclosed.
Yes.
They weren't under pressure. They weren't being interviewed. They were people having a conversation. Now, you have to take into account things like embellishments and stories with big talkers. But if that wasn't the case,
right,
where you have somebody who's a bragger and they're legit, and I think the legitimacy is lended where you're talking about the suicide of their friend.
Yes. It is two people who were there that were talking about the same crime that they witnessed and how it related to their friend's death. There was no need to boast. There was no need for exaggeration because it's two men having a conversation and they were both there. So they would know if the other one was lying. So like you said, it's far more reliable.
And it's hard to wrap your head around when you want closure, because I think that there is some closure in this case. There never got to be any punishment in terms of the closure. So we just have to rely like spiritually at this point that if you believe in a higher power, those people went to be judged by somebody much harsher than I have ever considered being when it comes to wrongdoing. Yes. Right?
Yep. At a soul level.
At a soul level.
A soul level, something that we
Well, there was already
do.
dead inside there at some point to be able to even do that. And then the one guy took his own life because he couldn't live with it. Right. And another one had a heart attack and another one was deceased.
I found that interesting too, that the other one had a heart attack.
So they're just all gone by the time
2004, all three of them.
Does that make you think at all that the recorder of the video maybe knew a little bit more than he should have, but finally felt comfortable coming forward because they were dead?
That's exactly what I was just going to say. 100%.
Why not disclose now? I found out they're all dead. No one can come back after me. So here's the truth of the matter.
Yeah, because they're murderers.
Yeah.
Right? And what if they don't get...
It does not make me love him very much.
No, but I do understand being fearful. These are two people that he, recorded killing another human being. And what if the justice system doesn't pan out and they don't have enough evidence to prosecute and they don't get put behind bars?
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So I am interested in knowing the unnamed man.
Me too.
I wonder how long it had been since he had died, and between then and 2004 when Mr. Williams came forward with that recording for police.
I'm interested in that too.
Yeah. Had it been fairly recent?
It wasn't necessarily readily available.
No, and they didn't. Okay. It is in every paper of unnamed man. So I don't know why this other guy was unnamed. I have no idea. Were they a minor at the time? I don't know that. Right. So that's the case of Evelyn Hartley. Okay. And may she rest in peace. And I feel terrible for her family that never got to see their closure.
No, but her story needed to be told, and I appreciate it. It was interesting. It was intriguing. And again, it was one of those ones where I think like it was a solved unsolved. Like we know what happened, but there's no way to ever prove it now because of just the situation and the length of time that's passed.
Right.
So frustrating.
It is so frustrating.
If any descendants of Evelyn are still around, our hearts are with you.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, we kind of had to bring ourselves to completion here.
Yeah, it happens.
Would you like a funny obituary?
Oh my gosh, yes, I would.
Okay, but before I'll say again, thank you, Justin, for the suggestion of Evelyn. And also now thank you to our dear friend, Andrea, for this brain bath.
Oh God, okay.
She actually sent me a TikTok. Did you see me almost knock myself out with this microphone?
I did. And by Andrea, you mean our vicious little redhead.
Our redhead friend, Andrea.
We love her.
4 years in, and I'm still don't know how to use this microphone. Cool.
Right.
Yes, Andrea follows this lady on TikTok that reads funny obituaries.
Oh, cool.
So naturally now I follow her.
Of course.
And I'll have plenty more for us. But this Dorothy Dodds obituary, I have to read to you. This is what she sent us. Dorothy means gift of God, but there may have been some confusion about the gift when Dorothy was born. Her parents were praying for a boy. She was their fourth girl. Dorothy grew up to be an inspiring, naughty, and wise woman who overcame the odds. It was a journey. Dorothy Gloria Green was born in Pontiac, Michigan, and grew up in Toronto, Canada, during the not-so-great Depression.
Oh, my God.
Times were tough, and even worse after her parents divorced due to her father's roving eye or some other body part.
Dude, way to call your dad's dick out in public.
Seriously.
Or grandpa, whoever wrote this obit.
Snaps for that. Dorothy and her next oldest sister spent 6 months in an orphanage.
Yikes.
Yeah.
No family members.
That's when Dorothy's fierce optimism and resilience first emerged. While she missed her mom desperately, she loved the regular meals and the kids in the orphanage. Dorothy and her mother returned to the United States, but Dorothy was left on her own when her mom remarried. So Dorothy got married at 16 and was pregnant about 20 minutes later.
Girl, I've been there.
Yeah, totally understand that. She moved to see. Sometimes you're pregnant 20 minutes before.
Fair enough.
She moved to San Diego after her daughter Christine was born. Not long after the move, Dorothy was diagnosed with tuberculosis. That was the first of 4 times in her life that doctors told her she was going to die. Dot lived in the TB hospital from 17 to 19 years old. She was given a high school degree in the hospital because, well, she was going to die anyway, so it seemed like the right thing to do.
They're just like, have an honorary degree.
But Dorothy refused to die. She was determined to live and to get her daughter out of foster care. She lost the joint in her right shoulder and had limited use of her arm for the rest of her life. Dorothy's husband celebrated her release from the hospital by asking for a divorce, and Dorothy became Dot. Dot's first 3 marriages were to military men.
Oh, honey, you see red flags and don't follow those either, or you do follow them.
No, she follows them like they're leading her to the circus.
Like they're a marching band banner.
She had a daughter by each fellow. Unfortunately, according to Dot, their penises influenced them, and she divorced them.
As they do, as they will.
Dot wanted more babies. She had 6 miscarriages between her first 2 children and developed a devastating kidney disease when she was 25.
Oh my God.
She swore her second daughter, Peggy, kicked her kidneys into submission while escaping the womb.
Jesus.
Dot had 1.5 of her kidneys removed.
She was working with half a kidney.
Yes.
She still didn't die?
No. Once again, doctors predicted she would die, but instead, she moved to South Carolina, married her 3rd husband, and was with only half of a kidney, gave birth to her 3rd daughter, Pat.
No shit.
Yes.
This woman's a Twinkie or a cockroach or...
Yes.
Wow.
Or a Twinkie taking up residence in a cockroach.
She's related to Keith Richards, right?
Yes. In South Carolina, God's hellhole, according to Dot. She helped support her family with accounting skills learned in business school. Dot went on to get a bachelor's degree in art, and after she moved her family to San Diego, Dot earned a master's degree in education. Wow. Eventually, she won awards in art shows and sold her work in galleries. Dot invested in her children with much more than money. She took them to museums and libraries. The family camped a lot, and Dot made time to be a Girl Scout leader. She invited her girls to truly examine their world, whether it was pulling a car over to look up at the beauty of a tree, explaining classic bone structure, or supporting the civil rights movement. Cursing and church were big things for Dot.
Like she did that or she didn't like that?
She did. Cursing.
Oh,
she
cursing and church.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I thought you said cursing in church.
No.
And I'm like,
I mean, maybe
well,
she did that too.
That's a brave woman. I think it's kind of like my grandma.
Oh, she sang in the choir, and she was also known for her bawdy jokes and extraordinary frank language, despite the prayers of many pastors. She may have well suffered from a heretofore undiscovered illness that made it impossible to talk without a cuss word in every single sentence.
Yes.
In her 40s, Dot had a soul-shaking transformation at a Billy Graham revival. God became ever more alive to her. It didn't change her language, but it did shift her heart and made her even happier than she already was. When Dot was 48, she met Mr. Wonderful Joe Dodds at a Toastmasters meeting. He was 59 years old. I don't know, but I want to go. Tell me, somebody take me to a Toastmasters meeting. He was 59 years old and quickly became the love of her life. Joe asked Dot to marry him just 17 days after they met. For 21 years, they traveled the world, built a dream house or two, and studied the Bible together. Dot would tell Joe that he had a great ass just to watch him blush.
Love her.
I could not love this woman more, by the way. She had 12 grandchildren between her 3 daughters and Joe's son, Bruce. Dot started most conversations with her daughters proclaiming, "I'm a happy person." She said she missed Joe every single day after he died, but wasn't going to sit around having a pity party and all that happy crap. She believed that she lived a full life, not despite hard times, but because of the hard times. If someone asked me what would you change in your life, and some of the times I've been hard and uncomfortable, in truth, I wouldn't change anything because all those experiences made me what I am. As time passed, little old ladies became a recurring theme in Dot's life. She enjoyed driving little old ladies to church.
Oh my God, she was a little old lady.
Never mind the fact that her passengers were at least 10 years younger than Dot.
But she could still drive and had her wits about her, and she called them her little old ladies. And I love that for her.
The San Diego Union Tribune may have thought they were dealing with some little old ladies when they reported a story about Dot and her friend Chris walking together for 25 years and picking up the trash along the way. She had this apparent tradition with her friend.
That's so cool. None of my traditions with friends are that benevolent.
I know. That is awesome.
We
nice. Should start one.
Where we just do nice things for people?
Well, we podcast to keep people's spirit alive and make fun of murderers.
We normalize the use of the word penis. And
we have.
Make things anatomically correct and always tell you the truth.
Exactly. See, we're doing good. We're spreading light.
It's God's work.
We're doing the Lord's work over here. So, Dot was 84 years old when she told the reporter that a stranger in a store thanked her for keeping the streets so nice. Dot didn't say what she was thinking, thankfully. Quote, "I wanted to say, pick up your own damn stuff and we wouldn't have to," end quote. Dot wasn't above using her age to get her way. When she cut in line at church lunches, she would just bat her eyes and with an oversized grin explain, "I'm just a little old lady."
Uh-huh.
Finally, a Bible study friend explained, "Dot, you're not little, you're not old, and you're definitely not a lady."
You're no lady. I love that.
She spent her last years traveling, painting, and I lost my place. Hold on. It was good. Volunteering, quilting, enjoying elaborate tea parties created by her daughter, Pat. She studied the Bible, enjoyed shocking people, and being with dear friends. Dot was happy but eager to see her Joe again. She had a devilish twinkle in her 92-year-old eyes as she shared what would happen when they reunited in heaven.
Oh.
We'll spare you the salacious details. She'd be so disappointed in us. A short while before Dot died, her daughter Peggy asked for advice on how to live on the planet without her. Dot scrunched up her face, looking skyward, searching for an answer, and then advised with gusto, "Get over it."
Right? Put on your big girl panties and deal with it, was what my grandma said.
Mm-hmm. We're trying.
Think of how young she was when she had those babies too. These young kids writing this obituary, they're in their 70s.
They're not young.
No, she was 92. These were like 74, 75-year-old women writing these.
She got married and had a baby at 16.
Yes. Holy crap.
So they say, we're trying. When she said get over it, they're saying, we're trying. Dot's inspiring, naughty, wise, indomitable. Dot's life will be celebrated. And then it goes on. And this, let's see, does it give the thing? It said Dot took a course on writing obits before writing a 1-paragraph obituary for herself. She asked her daughter, Peggy, to edit it. Peggy left the anatomical comments, so typical of Dot, intact and added to the story. Dot's children wanted you to know their mom.
I love it.
I got to show you a picture of Dot.
I love it.
Dot
Andrea, I'm so glad you sent this.
She's so full of life.
Totally want to hang out with that.
Look at that smile.
Look at her.
When we cross over to the other side, we can seek out Dot and just hang with her.
Dot, will you meet Charnell and I when we cross over? Because we want to play bingo.
We do. Also, I want to know all about the anatomical comments that you have, because I think we might be soul sisters. We too have anatomical comments.
And when you got to meet the love of your life after not seeing him because he passed, can you give me those deets? Because I bet it's juicy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got to know.
I need to know.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. So there's that. Thank you so much, Andrea and Justin, for today's, you sponsored today's episode, really. You really did. So thank you all for hanging in with us. We hope that you keep it curious.
And keep listening.
Till next time, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.